It's late. YouTube hit me with this guy named Bill. He's in central Mexico, near probably in the Estado de Mexico or in Mexico City. And he's talking to this lady that's on the right. She's a translator. You listen to this.
Great network of doctors in Morelia, and many.
I mean, who needs translation services? Who pays you to do that?
Well, many people. Mainly, let me tell you, I do have a great network of doctors in Morelia, and many people. Well, there are some of them that they are bilingual,
Uh-huh.
but some of them they are not. And it's when the people ask me to go with them to see a doctor and I'm translating. Also, many people need to translate documents like the birth certificate for some of the procedures in other areas that I work with also. And they need to have their merit certificate that I'm doing right now, some of that work also. So I have a certified translator here that she will do that also for me. So she is in my team, and we do that also.
Okay. I'm going to say something really stupid, but
No matter.
but I find that whenever I have to go to the phone company,
Oh, yeah.
or when I first got my cell phone service at Telcel, and you go to the Telcel office, and they give you like 10 pages of papers to sign, and I speak some Spanish, but there's so much paperwork there. Do you help people with things like that?
Yes, that is part of my services also, going with my clients everywhere where they need help, like opening up a bank account, going to get the cell phone at Telcel, or going to have the.
Now, let me explain this to you. The guy to the left, he's a grown man. He's a grown man. Now, I've seen where Latinos who are bilingual, they go to Mexico, they're in Mexico, they have problems, they can't read Spanish. They can't, yeah, they cannot read Spanish. And so now they're stuck. They can speak Spanish, but they can't read it. Okay. In the order of importance: listening, excuse me, listening, reading, speaking comes last. The reason speaking comes last is because, unbeknownst to Bill here, you can speak any language within 1 year. Even if you're at Bill's age, you can speak any language in 1 year. Now, it's easier if you understand the concept of a linchpin verb. You know, the linchpin verb of Spanish is vamos, because that's absolutely impersonal, and it does not require that you have the first person, second person, or third person singular. You can use the first person plural for everything. Vamos comer, vamos pensar, vamos nadar. Because you've already said yo, and you don't have to conjugate anything. Because if you say vamos comer a mañana, that's the future. You don't have to conjugate it. If you say vamos comer ayer, no problem. You ate yesterday. Now, once the person understands that you can't conjugate every verb, and they know that you're talking about yourself and not joint action, they can live with that. They can understand that. That'll get you past your first 6 months. Then after the first 6 months, now you can throw in some sophisticated stuff like, yo voy comer, to have it Englished up. See? And because you're just going to take vamos and replace it with voy. No, easy. No, easy. You don't make this stuff complicated. You make it complicated, you're never going to ever get it. If you got to have a translator, what you should do is just not go. If you got to have a translator, just don't go. It's just that simple. Because life is going to be far too complicated, and translators are so expensive and basically unreliable. They cannot translate for you for every particular part of your life. So Bill is in aguas profundas, nadando, sin vela. See? That's the best way to put it. Aguas, aguas, que onda. I mean, to get a deal, if you want to live at a low cost of living, I remember the South African doctor way back in way back in the day that developed the Jarvik 7. He got old and he didn't want to pay the cost of living anymore, and he was maybe in his 70s or his 80s or something. So he went off and he married a beautiful 20-year-old South African girl. And then he just plain and simply moved way out over by Swaziland. He and the girl lived there to the day he died. He didn't have any complications. His bills weren't expensive, none of that. So Bill here, he could have moved someplace in the United States or in one of its territories that had a really nice climate, like American Samoa. He could have moved to American Samoa. He could have moved to Guam. He could have moved to even Puerto Rico. There are plenty of places in the United States where you don't have to learn another language and you can live cheaply. There's literally like you have no economic advantage in Mexico. None. Not if your singular goal is to live cheap. You can't say that your goal is to immerse yourself in culture, because Bill has not done that. Bill is, let's just be blunt, Bill is a uno pendejo, uno lengua pendejo. He's a pez afuera de agua, bocando. I mean, this just makes no sense. Let her talk a little bit more, then I'll end this.
The service of the internet in their new places where they don't have it, which are the houses, mainly the houses that are unfurnished. I do that. So all that kind of services are the ones that I do for my clients. So it's the translation that I'm promoting in my business card. I do all kind of translations though.
Oh, well, Rosie, I want to say thank you very much. You've opened so many doors for me, and I'm sure we would love to interview again in the future, but thank you so much for the time that you have shared with us.
My pleasure. Thank you again. It was just great, and I will love to help everyone who needs my assistance. And you have my contact, and of course I'm here in Morelia, and I have my website, so you can, as the www.arosierelocation.com, and you can anytime just send me a message and I will be happy to help you. Have a great day.
All right. Adios.
Adios.
Please leave a comment. Tell us what you think. And if you like the video, click the like.
This guy reminds me of this Guatemalan guy that I work with. And every time I had to deal with this Guatemalteco, he was mad. And he always wanted to talk about what I didn't know. You know, he always wanted to talk about what he knew, and he wanted to talk about what I didn't know. That was his whole thing. And he was just absolutely obsessed with that from the first day to the last day that I knew him. And that was like a 3 or 4 year period of time. It was never, ever, ever comfortable with him. And what it came down to is that he just absolutely hated the United States. He just hated it. He didn't have any particular talent in terms of, he didn't have any linguistic talent. It was impossible to teach him English. It was just impossible. I mean, which I've never really I've never really been able to say that of too many people. Usually anyone can speak English within a year or any other language within a year. But this guy just could not grasp it. And so his inadequacy just bled on to your relationship with him. And Spanish didn't help him because he had no cultural reference to Mexico. Maybe he had passed through Mexico on his way to the United States, and he was, and his papers weren't, in order. So he couldn't go back home to Guatemala. He couldn't go to Mexico. He was trapped in the United States. I mean, he was basically a bird in a gilded cage. And he let everybody know about it, and he took it out on us all. He was miserable. Yeah, he was sending money back to his family in Guatemala. Yeah, if he had to return to Guatemala, he had bought a house and bought a car or bought this or bought that. And, yeah, he was a tradesman and he was making about, $40 an hour. All of that. And did excellent work. Beautiful, excellent work. Highly skilled. But he just could not get over the fact that he had no grasp of English. And he had no cultural bearing in Mexico. So Mexicans would say stuff in one of the Mexican native languages, and his mind just went blank. He couldn't get it. He couldn't get it. They talk about geographic features in Mexico. He couldn't get it. They talk about foods in Mexico. He couldn't get it. And he was just isolated, stuck, bird in a gilded cage. Now he had at work everyone spoke Spanish. So he had in his home and in his work he had Spanish. But once he stepped off of that job site, you could see the terror in his face. Because once he got off that job site, he had to, at least on his way home, he had to deal with English. And it was just terrifying for him. And every day you saw him, it was terrifying. So this Bill guy, he has the exact same sort of mentality. You can look at his face and you can tell that it's just terrifying for him. He couldn't go, he says here that he went into Telcel to sign a contract for a cell phone. Nobody told him that he shouldn't have went into Telcel to attempt to sign a contract in Telcel, because it is not cheaper than just going to OXXO and getting a Telcel card. It's you're going to get the same service, the same everything, and no contract. You're getting the same thing. There's no advantage to going into Telcel at all. So I don't know. Only thing that I can say about all of this is that if you don't know Bill, don't go. It's not worth saving 45%. And that's about what you're gonna say. You're gonna save 45% housing costs, food costs, total cost in Mexico, you're going to save 45%. And let's round it up at 40%, so that I don't have to, you know, say I can say a 60-40 split. But if you pay 100% in the United States and you pay 40% less in Mexico, what eventually happens is that the 40%, the 60%, and the 100% become indistinguishable because your translation and transaction costs just soar. And that's the situation that Bill is in. You know, why why be uncomfortable all day long, not knowing what people's intentions are because you can't understand what they're saying? So, if you don't know, please save yourself. Don't try to be Christopher Columbus, to coin a phrase from someone else. If you don't know, don't go.
But if you know somebody that needs a translator in Mexico, click the share button. We have a new Facebook group. It's called Mexico Expats